of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the July 16 meeting for the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair of the Shawnee County Commission. Joining me today is Commissioner Shelley Buehler. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Bob Archer. Good morning.
Good morning.
At about 9:45 or so, if we are not done, we will need to take a break. There is to be an announcement at 10 o'clock at the West Star Public Pocket Park. And so I would encourage those available or able to go to the West Star Pocket Park this morning at 10 o'clock for that announcement. But I don't think that we'll have any problem making that timeline with the agenda.
I'll read really fast.
All right. Our first item.
First thing. Number 1, proclamations, presentations. Presentation on the 2017 financial audit by Kristen Hughes, RSM US LLP.
Good morning. Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services, and I will just introduce Kristen, who was in charge of our audit this year with RSM.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you all?
Great.
Good morning.
Good. Well, I'll just go through the audit results. Hopefully, I think you probably have each of the 3 documents. I'll start with, if there's a particular one you have on top, I can go through the same order you have. If the stapled document is what you have, this represents our auditor communications. It goes through topics that we as the auditors are required to report back to those charged with governance. And so what this goes through is both required communications as well as a general summary of any items, if there were any, that came up during the audit. So what you'll see on the first page here of the stapled packet, as I mentioned, is just a few topics. It's a couple of reminders, really, of it's going through the responsibilities. So it's a reminder. These are laid out in the arrangement letter that's signed before the start of the audit. But in that letter, that goes through and explains the standards that we follow as the independent auditors, as well as the responsibilities on both management and the commissioners, as it relates really to the accuracy of the financials as well as the information we're provided during the audit. On the first page here, you'll just see significant accounting practices and policies. That's just meant to let you know that as a part of the audit, there are areas in the financials referred to as significant estimates, meaning there's a component of subjectivity. So usually those are areas where a policy has been adopted, and so as part of the audit, we're making sure that these areas are accounted for consistently with the policy the county has adopted, and we're also just making sure they seem reasonable compared with other counties and other areas we would expect to see in this industry. On the next page, you'll see just a couple references, and those are on subsequent pages, so I'll go through theirs. Again, if there was any significant issues that came up as far as getting information from management or anything like that, those would be summarized here and discussed with you, and there were none. So you'll see no mention of those here on the second page. Moving on to the third page, we just want to provide you, as we go through the audit, we're provided with a trial balance to start our audit and go through our work, and if there's any adjustments that are noted that are then reflected in the financials, those are summarized here. So really no significant ones. I mean, there's a couple that we went through and discussed with Betty's department as we prepared, as they prepared the financials, on a couple adjustments identified, but really no significant ones. On the next page, you'll see this is the summary of uncorrected misstatements. So this just means a couple adjustments that came up, again, during our testing. They were determined to be immaterial, and we agreed with that conclusion, and so these actually have not been reflected in the financials. So instead, you'll just see them summarized here. And really, the couple that were noted are really just timing issues of maybe when an accrual is recognized in the current year or next year. And finally, you're always provided with a copy of any significant written communications between ourselves and management. So here at the end, you'll just see the management representation letter. Again, really kind of 2 main themes. It's several pages, but it's really going through and just confirming that the financials are complete and accurate to the best of their knowledge, and then as well as the information that we were provided with as we performed our audit. The next item, the smaller bound packet, this is the compliance report. So this goes through and this summarizes, so along with the financial statement audit, we do what's called a single audit of the federal grant dollars that the county spends during the year. So this summarizes both. Really the best page the first 4 pages, these are the letters that are issued on, in consideration of internal controls. So as a reminder, we do not give an opinion on internal controls, but if anything comes up during the audit, those are noted here. You're provided with the definitions, and then we let you know if there were any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that came up during the audit. On pages 5 through 7, you're required to report the federal expenditures that were made as it relates to grant dollars, and so you'll just see those grants summarized on those 3 pages. I'll point you to page 10. This is a really good one-page summary of, really, this one page kind of summarizes the results of the audit. So you'll see at the top of page 10, first consideration is the opinion we gave on the financials was an unmodified opinion, meaning a clean opinion or the highest opinion that we as auditors can issue on the financial statements. Next, you'll see summarized in the financial statement section, as I mentioned, we are required to report if there was any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or material non-compliance to the financials. And so here you'll see there that there were none as it relates to the financial statement audit. In the next section, it summarizes the federal awards, meaning, again, the audit work we did specific to the grant dollars. And so you'll see there were no material weaknesses reported. There was one significant deficiency reported. You'll see it's actually discussed on the next page. It just related to within the Medicaid grant, significant dollars are passed through to a subrecipient, and there are certain, in the circular, they list suggested areas as far as how closely you monitor those subrecipients. So we just noted some deficiencies as far as dollars that are passed through by the county, how closely those are being monitored as how the subrecipient is spending those. So you'll just see that summarized there. But then there was no material non-compliance noted, meaning no dollars or expenditures came up during our testing that were determined to be out of compliance with how the grant allows those to be spent. At the bottom there, just for your information, you'll see the 2 major programs that were audited, the WIC contract and then again the Medicaid grant. And so, like I said, this is kind of a good page to go through, really kind of a nice little summary of the audit itself. The financials themselves, I won't go through these in great detail. I know it's a lot of information. The couple things I just wanted to remind you of, as I already mentioned, the audit opinion. It was a clean audit opinion. On page 3, you will see that's management's discussion and analysis. So I usually point readers to that. It's 10 pages or less, and it's a good narrative that has been written up analyzing the 2017 financials to the 2016, looking for any significant fluctuations, providing an explanation on areas as to why maybe revenue, expenses, et cetera, has increased or decreased compared to the prior year. So it's kind of a good, like I said, just analysis of what you're seeing in the audited financials, and that is prepared internally by management going through and providing that analysis. There were no new, usually we like to highlight if any new accounting standards were adopted, something you would see different or new in the financials compared to prior year, and there were none. So really, if you were to compare this year's report to last year's, you'll see mostly all the similar disclosures. Any questions? I know that was kind of quick, but I'm happy to go through any questions you might have on the audit or the financials.
Commissioner Archer, any questions?
No, I don't. It seems like we come to assume a clean audit every year, but I don't know that we truly appreciate the work that you do and that our finance team does to ensure that we have a clean audit. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. No, and a really good job with Betty's department. I mean, it is a lot of work when we come in. Our requests are all on top of, obviously, their daily work, and so they were very, very accommodating, very timely, getting us information, things like that. Which, we also, certainly we would report to you if there were actual problems, but it's good when we know that they are certainly addressing our requests and making the audit a priority, so.
That's always good to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
This time, we would move then to acknowledge receipt of the 2017 audit.
I'll second.
Motion made to acknowledge receipt by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. Again, since this is a little bit larger item and it impacts the county, if there's any public comment, seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 2, unfinished business. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-207-2018 with the City of Topeka for the reconstruction of Southwest Gary Ormsby Drive from Southwest Highway 75 northbound on-ramp through Southwest Innovation Parkway. The county paying 50% or $500,813, whichever is less, for design, construction, engineering, and contingencies. The county share will be funded from the Public Works Special Highway Improvement Account. The city will pay all the remaining costs of the project. Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Luck, Public Works and Solid Waste. As mentioned, this is a Public Works item, and this is in follow-up to our discussion a couple of weeks ago. Just as a reminder, Southwest Gary Ormsby Road, which runs from the portion from Highway 75 to South Topeka Boulevard, that is the location out where the Mars plant is located. When Mars was annexed into the city, it was done by island annexation, so the city has just the property south of Gary Ormsby Road, and the portion of property north of Gary Ormsby Road remains in the county, actually in Williamsport Township. When the annexation was completed, the annexation was done to the center line of Gary Ormsby Road, thus leaving the south half of the road under the maintenance jurisdiction of the city and the north half of the road under maintenance jurisdiction of the county. That road is in need of repair, particularly with the increase in semi-traffic that's utilizing that roadway. So since that road is split between the two, we got with the city to see if we could come together to agree to perform a project together. The first time we brought it up, the city was going to lead the entire project, and at that discussion, the commission wanted our Public Works department to be a little bit more in the lead when it came to getting the completion of the project. So Tom Flanagan and myself met with the city engineer and his project manager to discuss the agreement, and what we had determined is, and what we think will be a good solution, is the city will continue to lead the design, in which we will be involved in the design review. But when the design plans are done, they will then turn them over, and we will then handle the bidding and the construction administration of the project to see that it gets done, do our best to get it done on a timely fashion. So we believe it's fair. We worked, and we think it will be a good solution, and we worked the contract to have it revised with our counselor's office, and so it is with that we're asking approval. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I think this answers a lot of the questions that I had and a lot of the concerns that I had. So I feel much more comfortable today than I did when we first took up this topic. So Commissioner Bueller, any questions?
No, I don't have any further questions. Compromise. I'll move approval of the contract.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller.
Yeah, I'll second. I feel a lot better, too.
So, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
There are 3 items on the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
The vouchers are totaling $1,803,282.11. We have payroll, or actually holding accounts with the state of Kansas, $668,682.05. Payroll under pooled cash is $619,505.54. And just of note, under equipment fund, we have a purchase of a heavy equipment trailer from Berry Tractor and Equipment. That's $79,240. So I have no questions. I'll move approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for the approval of the correction orders.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Health Department, number 1, consider approval of request to create and fill a Spanish interpreter position and any subsequent positions which result from filling this position at an annual salary of $47,536, including benefits to be paid from the program revenue and tax allocation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oakes from the Health Department. In evaluating our customer service at our clinic, which would be immunizations, the tuberculosis program, sexually transmitted infection clinic, we found we were lacking a person to be a Spanish interpreter. And I think you heard from Carrie last week, I know you did, about the tuberculosis program a little bit. We've had 5 active cases we're working with right now, which means those folks, we have to see them every day of the week and watch them take their medication. That is the best practice as recommended by the Centers for Disease Control and Tuberculosis Control. And then we have about 40 patients a year who have tuberculosis infection. So they're not contagious, they're not sick, but they could become that way. So they come in once a month and we give them medication and we visit with them about how they're doing. So I think in those cases, the relationship is so important. We're asking people to take some pretty difficult medications for up to 9 months. And so in order to have that relationship, I think the interpreter really helps with our Spanish-speaking patients. And of course, we also have people come in for immunizations. And I think, we have the language line and we can use that, but this is a much better way to communicate medical information. We want to make sure people understand what they're taking, what medications they're getting. So I discussed this position with Human Resources and the union. Everyone's in agreement and supportive of it. And we do have it in our budget, in the 2018 budget and the 2019 budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Linda regarding this item?
I do not.
I'll move then for approval of the request to create and fill a Spanish interpreter position.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Our next item.
Item B2, consider approval of request to award bid to Custom Data Processing, Inc., CPD, for electronic health record services, and a request that the county councilor enter into contract negotiations with the multi-county collaborative in the estimated cost to Shawnee County of $110,000.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Edith Gaines with the Shawnee County Health Department. I'm the finance officer there. And earlier this year, we did collaborate with 4 other counties to submit an RFP for an electronic health record system. The purpose of the collaboration was to try to gain discounts on pricing, to create universal forms that would be used within the system, and to be able to gain similar services through the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And so we had received a total of 8 proposals, and of those 8, we had narrowed down to the top 3. And out of those 3, then we narrowed down to 1 that the collaboration would like to offer the bid to, and that is Custom Data Processing, or CDP. So at this time, we are asking to enter into contract negotiations. We do estimate that the cost will be about $110,000. That would be about $65,000 in one-time costs and about $45,000 in recurring costs if all the counties do not participate. If all 5 counties do participate, then we estimate the cost could be considerably less. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions regarding the custom data processing? Commissioner Archer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When do you anticipate implementation of the electronic health record?
The other counties have a deadline that they are trying to meet. Originally, they wanted to begin implementing by the end of July. I don't think they're going to meet that deadline at this point, but definitely within, I'd say, the next 2 to 3 months, they want to begin implementation.
And when do you anticipate target date for total implementation of the program?
1 year. So I know the other counties, their deadline is like July of 2019.
One other question, if I may. In the long run, what impact is this going to have on our customers, the health department, taxpayers in Shawnee County? What is the long-term impact of the electronic health record?
So it should help us to be more efficient, because moving to the electronic health records, we would not have the paper records any longer, which in the long run would save costs on storage and shredding. It would just help us to be able to service the customer faster, being able to pull those records up electronically at the time we're seeing them instead of having to pull paper charts. Again, we're also looking for efficiencies in working with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, being able to communicate with them electronically, to be able to communicate with lab services electronically, as well as our insurance providers that we bill. We also look to just streamline some of the record keeping that we're doing manually would then become electronic, as well as just saving money with staff time.
So in the long run, this investment is going to pay off.
Yes, it will eventually.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
I move approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Bueller,
Second.
second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item C, Public Works Solid Waste. Number 1, consider approval of request to award bid to Armor Equipment for the purchase of 2 side loader trucks, 1 Mack truck, and 1 autocar truck at a total cost of $751,827.35 for 4 vehicles, with funding from the Solid Waste Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block again, Public Works and Solid Waste. This is a solid waste item. And to give you a little bit of background, we went out for bids to replace two of our side load trucks, and we received bids from 3 different vendors, and I believe we received like 11 different bids or so, who submitted prices on different manufacturers of trucks. And our recommendation for the award of that bid would be to Armor Equipment to purchase 2 Peterbilt trucks. Upon further discussion with my staff, one thing that we have done in the past on a smaller scale was we have, for instance, like compared different manufacturers of materials against each other to determine which one really was the best manufacturer. For instance, we've done that with our oil, and we determined that there's a certain type of oil that allowed us to go from having to change oil and do a service, which are quite expensive for large trucks, every 3,000 miles to upwards of every 10,000 miles. We basically tripled the length of the time we needed to do the services. We also did the same with our brake pads, where we took a set of brake pads from different vendors, stuck them on trucks that were being driven under similar circumstances, and we determined there was a certain type of brake pad that we could use that went from where we had to change our brake pads and do a brake service every 3 months to every 3 years. What we'd like to do, in realizing those savings and the dramatic savings that we've seen from just doing those smaller experiments, we'd like to do the same on a larger scale with our trucks as a whole, and see which vendor of truck looks like it would be the most cost-effective for the life of the truck. And so, while the recommendation is to purchase the 2 Peterbilt trucks, which is the lowest and most responsive bid, there are other manufacturers of trucks that were also bid at the same time that were slightly more expensive. So that is what our request is we would like to buy 1 truck, which is a Mack truck, and 1 truck that is an autocar truck, and do a long-term experiment for those trucks. The crane carrier was another type that was bid. That's our current fleet, so we have pretty good information on those already, so we're not requesting to purchase one of those. But what we'd like to do is buy the 2 Peterbilt, which is the normal bid, and then buy 1 of each of the Mack and the autocar, so that we can do a long-term comparison of our vehicles to determine over the lifespan of the trucks which one truly is the best and most cost-effective as it compares to, fuel usage, repairs, all kinds of things of that nature. So with that, if that is agreeable to the commission, that is what our request is, And to do so, the cost of that, which would include trade-ins, is $751,827.35. And the funding from this would come from the Solid Waste Fund, and we do have it in our account to be able to afford to do this request. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Just a reminder, Solid Waste Fund is an enterprise fund, not taxpayer funds.
Yes, thank you very much. And also, the truck, the low bidder for the Peterbilt trucks is also the low bidder for the other two types of trucks, so it would be coming from the low bidder.
Commissioner Bueller, any questions?
No, sounds like a good plan.
Commissioner Archer, anything?
Then I'll move to approve the request.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Archer,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item C2, consider approval of request to award bid to Bettis Asphalt and Construction for the milling of an estimated 79,750 square yards of asphalt surfacing for various Shawnee County roadways at a cost of $173,057.50 with funding from the 2018 Public Works Road Maintenance Fund.
Commissioner, I'm Locke again, Public Works and Solid Waste. This is a Public Works item, and this is in follow-up to a request that was made a few weeks ago regarding going out for bid for the milling and sweeping services for the roadways that we plan to do an overlay on yet this year. We did go out for bid. We just received the one bid from Bettis Asphalt and Construction. They have provided these services for us the past several years. They do a quality job, and so it is our recommendation that we accept the bid or award the bid to Bettis. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Tom, overall, are we seeing the cost of milling and asphalt going up, rising with oil costs, or are they staying flat right now?
Well, the cost of milling is really unrelated to the cost of oil, but the services have gone up over the years, I think just primarily due to labor costs. And I think now with this last couple of years, the economy is turning around. I think labor costs are going up because I think the economy is, at least appears to me, that it's on a pretty decent track right now, and as a result, there's just more competition for labor. So, but we have seen an increase.
Commissioner Archer, any questions? Or?
No, thank you.
No, we did just get one bid, though, correct?
Yes,
Just
we
one
did.
bid. Okay.
I'll move approval of the request to award bid to Bettis Asphalt.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head or member of the public to address the commission on any item.
Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. I just wanted to make a comment on the 2017 audit. Kristen mentioned working with the Audit Finance Department, but I also want to say that this involved all the departments in the county. A lot of the requests funneled through my office, but that doesn't mean the information didn't come from all the other departments. I know the clerk's office, the treasurer's office, health department, solid waste, all had a lot of inquiries that they had to provide information, and I just wanted to thank all of them.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Betty.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Derek Mead, Youth Sports Manager, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation. Just want to remind you guys, we are hosting the USSSA Midwest National Championship softball tournament this weekend. I'll throw my pen on the floor. We have 39 teams coming in from 7 states. They range in age from 14 and under to 18 and under. Those games will be played at Bettis Family Sports Complex as well as the Lake Shawnee Girls Softball Complex. Games will be played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, with a rain-out date possible of Sunday. Had another note. What was it? Oh, economic impact will range from a minimum of $180,000 up to possibly as much as $220,000.
Very
Any
good.
questions?
No.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing the girls out.
Yep.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rachel Meyer, Shawnee County Parks and Rec. I did just want to remind everyone that on Wednesday evening, we have an event held at Ramada Downtown by our Parks and Recreation Foundation. It's the 6th Annual Baseball Hall of Fame for Shawnee County. And we are going to be inducting 9 inductees, plus we do have 2 high school players that we're going to recognize this year as well. And tickets are still available. They are $25 each. We do have tables of 8 available as well. And it's always a really fun event, a great meal, lots of history about Shawnee County baseball. And we do have a list of inductees, plus a roster of the Mosby Mac American Legion team. And then we also have a guest speaker, Tom Bergmeyer, a former Royals relief pitcher and pitching coach as well. So, and I do have media packets available if anybody needs one today.
All right,
So,
great.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Rachel. Any other member of the public?
Morning, Commissioners. Is it my understanding you've got a short meeting you need to get out of here?
Well, we're not till 9:45, so you got
Okay, a few minutes?
a few
All right.
minutes.
I do want to give time for Terry Roberts to also speak, so I don't want to take up all the time. Let me hand this out first so that we've got it in the record. If I may. One for the county council. And let me get my notes up here. Good morning. Commissioners, the reason I'm here is I am a member of the Parks and Rec Advisory. Been a member since last April. I did email this to all of you over the weekend, I believe. I have had a discussion with our Parks and Rec Advisory. Finally brought this forward at our last meeting. We had a 9-3 approval from the advisory. What this concept is, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on it today. I'm simply presenting it as an idea to solve a very tough problem that we have in Parks and Rec, which is maintenance and deferred maintenance. I realize that this concept, the only criticism I've gotten so far is, why did it take you so long to bring this forward? And I said, my gosh, I had to think through this process, and I had to check some laws, and I said, I finally put this together in late May, and then I went on vacation. If it's okay, Jim, I did at least talk about this concept with Jim before I brought it forward to anybody else. And I have talked to some people at the chamber, I've talked to some people with the city governing body, very few, because this is just a start, but I have received positive from at least 2 of them that I've discussed it with. And then I've got 3 city council people that I have a lot of contact with about Parks and Rec. It's District 1, 2, and 3, and I was appointed by District 3, and they've continually told me about concerns they have with their neighborhood parks, that they would like to see more maintenance, playground equipment, those kind of things. So this is not to come and criticize anybody, because I realize that this commission has already met some of the needs with some of the reserve funds, and we're hoping for more. But I believe that we have to come up with a long-term concept and process of how we're going to fix about $20 million worth of deferred maintenance in the Parks and Rec system. And so what I've done is I've talked to different people about, we're having a vote come up, potentially, and it's going to be discussed in just a few days with the city council. I'll pass this out as well, if I may. Approach. This is a letter just talking about the next, any issues that come up in November, i.e. sales tax, et cetera, that would need to be put on the ballot by August 24th. So this concept, even though it's a little slow in coming forward, it's still got time to be discussed. Now, the framework is that this would work through an interlocal agreement between the 2 governing bodies of the city and the county. Now, I want to look at the history of that. We have had several JADO agreements over the past decade. They've all worked, from what I can tell. I have not seen anybody renege on any parts of what they were asked to do, whether it was county or city. So I believe that we have not just an opportunity to work on this with the sales tax and give excess sales tax to Parks and Rec, if this concept was adopted, of about $3 million a year over the next 10 years. And that language needs to be very clear that it's for maintenance, improvements, playground equipment, the things that the public is wanting. There's about 85% approval rating of the public to put more money into Parks and Rec. We know that that's a quality of life issue. We also know that with the neighborhood parks, it actually affects the value of those surrounding houses. And I think there's empirical evidence to prove that. So when you drive across the city and you see parks that are well-maintained with good playground equipment, you see a lot of kids active, you see the neighborhood homes around there as a tendency, tend to be pretty well-maintained. What I'm troubled with is, and I did send you a picture of some deferred maintenance in Garfield Park today, what I'm troubled with is that we don't have enough playground equipment. In the 103 parks, we've got less and less each year. It's wearing out. You can go to Country Club Park on Topeka Boulevard and see almost no equipment. You can go to Seabrook on Gage and see almost no equipment. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's just a need to enhance maintenance and improvements in Shawnee County Parks and Rec. And I do want to allow time for Terry, and I don't want to take up all the time. One of the things that I had discussed with me was, well, this is going to be really more driven by the city, and I can see that, and it's going to be more an item of cooperation between the two governments. And what I would tell you in my observation of the two governments is I see parts of both governments that do very well. I see some that need some improvement. Your public works is outstanding. I can't say enough good about it. I've watched them. I've lived in the county on my farm when I was out there for 7 years. I've seen those repairs. I'm very impressed. On the other hand, we've got to do a better job of maintenance with Parks and Rec, but it's a money issue. It's not a matter of leadership. I've looked at that. It's a matter of budget. So I believe with proper budget dollars, we can make Parks and Rec a very premier system in this state and be a true quality of life magnet for this city and county. I don't mind standing for questions, but I do want to allow Terry to speak. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for Mr. Ledbetter?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And I come in my capacity as the Vice Chair of the Shawnee County Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. First, I wanted to, Joe actually stole one of my lines. Mr. Flock, who talked about working with the city about fixing Gary Orensby Drive, those kinds of cooperations are really essential to be an effective community. And I just wanted to comment on that kind of as an analogy to this proposal that we've pitched. We want it to be successful. You know, they already are going to vote on it, I think, tomorrow night, from my understanding. And it is our intent to go in front of them tomorrow to talk about it and ask them for consideration of this. We want it to not threaten theirs. We want it to be win-win. That's, of course, they don't want their half-cent sales tax threatened by increasing it to the county. But we think Parks and Recs, you could sell it with Parks and Rec. We think we could try and sell it. We know that it'll provide a consistent funding source for deferred maintenance for Parks and Rec, and we think the community could get their arms around that. And we as an advisory committee, are committed to exploring alternatives for the Parks and Rec that are both futuristic and reasonable, and we think this one is. Now, we also know that time is of the essence and that there's a tight timeline to even work this out. but we are putting it in front of you today, not for a vote or just for kind of consideration, and we'd be willing to come back here to talk about it again and to rally the troops to support it, but we did want to present it to you today before we went before the city council tomorrow night.
Any questions for Terry?
And I'm not an expert on interlocal agreements, so it'll have to be about something else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public or department heads? Commissioner Archer, anything today?
No, interesting concept, and we will take a look at it. But I will point out, though, that the last time we had an interlocal agreement, it took over a year to agree. So it's not always smooth skating, unfortunately, working with the city and the county, but interesting concept, and I think we should look at it seriously and see if it might be a possibility. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bueller?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Following the meeting, at 10:30, we do have a budget hearing for the Shawnee County elections. At 11 o'clock is a budget hearing for the Shawnee County Health Department. Then this afternoon, at 1 o'clock, is a budget hearing for the information technology, and at 2 o'clock, the county clerk. And those will be the budget hearings today. As we continue through the process, we've almost reached the halfway point. And so anyway, at 10 o'clock, again, there is at the West Star Pocket Park, an announcement to be made, and I look forward to seeing if anybody can be there. I have nothing further. Our next item.
Item 6, executive session.
There is not a need for an executive session, so we are adjourned.